Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is June the 17th, 2026. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Hopefully, you humped and didn't get humped. Unless that's what you're into, then by all means, have at it. As for me, as for mine, it was a good day. It was a solid day. I will say I woke up an hour too early, which has been something my body's just been doing for the past, few days of this week. I will say though, I'm at least getting like solid rest. That's why I'm not complaining. I'm trying not to complain. We're half full with our glass of water, and so I got up, got myself together, and we headed on out to work. Work was solid. We did run out of work, and I did have to go up and do some putbacks, but not too bad. Poked around a little bit with that. I think I went back downstairs real quick, and then more or less just clocked out. That was my whole day. Overall, solid. We love to see it. Has been a bit gloomy, a bit rainy, but we persevere. We got to the gym after work. Gym was solid. Doing the old in and out. I got to hit the spots, so that was good. And then let's see, we came home, or actually we didn't come home actually right away. We went to the grocery store. Weekday grocery shopping. I will say it's nice that it's usually not as busy. Oh, that's thumbs up for that. In this situation, I was able to get all my groceries. This grocery run kind of felt like, oh, I'm just kind of getting odds and ends things, like none of the main stuff. I really didn't need that, but like, some praline pecans here and some cheese sauce there, that kind of grocery run. So yeah, got everything there. We got ourselves home, had our stretch, had our snack, and did some research for tonight's episode, depending on when you're listening to this. I don't know. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into some news. This week, it has been starting off a lot cooler in the daytime and then usually heating up. Today wasn't so much because it actually like rained, but overall though, weather-wise, it's been a good week. I'll take it. Knock on wood for that. We're halfway there. Ugh. Do. All right. Our first story comes from the BBC. They came with machetes. Deadline looms for migrants to leave South Africa. South Africa has become a hostile place for undocumented migrants as a deadline set by protesters for them to leave the country approaches. I am very scared and traumatized, Isnet Joseph, a 36-year-old Malawian woman, told the BBC as she tried to comfort her crying one-year-old triplets. She fled her home in an informal settlement in the port city of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal province, seeking refuge in an open field where up to 7,000 foreigners, mainly Malawans, began gathering with their belongings 2 weeks ago. They came to my house and told me, "You must leave. We don't want you people to stay here any longer. So you have to go to your country." There were 10 and they were carrying weapons, she said, describing how the group of South African men were holding machetes and whips. They cut my husband on his head and his neck. They were holding his neck like they wanted to kill him. Because of God, he still survived, but he is in the hospital. Many others at the field were aid groups. Where aid groups have been giving out blankets and food, report such door-to-door intimidation. It follows a series of mainly peaceful protests this year, led by the anti-migrant group March and March, Opposition Party Action SA, and others, which have set a June 30th deadline for undocumented migrants to leave. Sticks in hand, the marchers have been chanting Mahahambe, a Zulu phrase meaning they must go. As the countdown continues, President Cyril Ramaphosa warned South Africans on Tuesday that the scapegoating of vulnerable people was not the solution to the country's complex economic challenges. I appreciate Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that. I think it's important to see the president saying, hey, this is not right. What you guys are doing is wrong. You're going about this the wrong way. But you can see in other politicians, they kind of mention them later throughout the article. This is a pretty long read. We're not going to get into all of it. But essentially, and this is a tale as old as time. I've talked about this before, where I remember coming into, learning about politics, not just here, but then internationally around the world. And you see that like this immigration thing, this xenophobia issue is really how I look at it, is something that just can grow and grow and grow and build and build and build and stack and stack and stack. And essentially we're saying, well, because you are not from here, because you are other to me, you're the problem for everything. And you see politicians, you see people saying, hey, the problem isn't the government. It's not any of these issues that they're not actually able to handle or handling. It's actually these people. We have a failed state issue, but not our state. It's from other, countries on the continent. And they're coming here and they're making our lives worse. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our space. They're making everything a problem and they need to go. And I say the same thing that I've said countless times. Insert place here. That is not going to solve your issue. You are just doing violence. You are just hurting other people. You're making their lives hell and miserable. You're scaring them. For what? You're still going to be left with the same problem years to come. You're not actually fixing the root cause, any of the real issues. So it is really sad to see this situation repeated. And as always, you could say, well, if people just go about these things the right way, they're only supposed to be here for 30 to 50 days. They're abusing this. They're staying here for months longer, years longer. Like, that's the only thing we care about. But that's bullshit, even if that was the only thing you could care about. At the end of the day, there are reported cases of people who are like, I have proper refugee status. It's set. People don't care. The Uber driver's looking at me, wants to see my papers, period, and says, you don't belong. Like, that is a situation we're dealing with. What do you do when you're just a person who's just trying to make a living in this new place? You've already had to leave, flee, whatever the situation may be. You are now in this new country of opportunity, you thought, and now they're saying, no, you're actually stealing my opportunity. You gotta go, or I'll fucking attack you. Like, what is this solving? What is this doing? But I know, once again, I live in America, home of the quote-unquote free, okay? Like, melting pot, all right. They'll cook your ass for what? Fucking what? Just hanging out. So yeah, it's frustrating to see in 2026 that we are still dealing with the same kind of shit. I think they even say in this article, I think last month, 5 people were killed. I didn't really catch wind of that story, so, that being said, I kind of heard this story making the rounds this week on the BBC, and I was like, I don't know when or where or how I'm going to incorporate this story, but I know I should. I know I need to talk about this. This is definitely just in my wheelhouse, my Rolodex of things that I do feel passionate about talking about and covering. I don't care how fucking stupid you think I am or whatever. I don't give a damn. But it's just worth mentioning. It's worth fucking talking about. And ringing the fucking alarm about. I know I'm just a fucking dude in Ohio, but goddamn, shit's fucked. Anyway, we can move on to our next story from the Hill. We're going to America. Living in America. From the Hill. Trump takes special education civil rights oversight away from education department. The Trump administration on Tuesday announced that special education and civil rights oversight would no longer be held by the Department of Education. Instead, the Department of Justice, or the DOJ, will now handle civil rights enforcement and student privacy protection, while the Department of Health and Human Services takes over special education initiatives for students with disabilities. Education Secretary Linda McMahon said diverting responsibilities to HHS will help students with disabilities achieve greater independence, key life skills, and meaningful employment, while other tasks assigned to the DOJ will ensure stronger, more coordinated civil rights and enforcement and robust protections for student privacy. This shift also follows President Trump's campaign to dismantle or campaign promise to dismantle the Department of Education in an effort to decrease federal control over schools and return authority to the states, which I think is a very backwards thing. I don't know what autonomy or agency you're really giving back to the states when I feel like you're just giving them less assistance, less help, less oversight. I think these things are these things matter. And at the end of the day, you still have that state involved in the whole process anyway. But now you're saying, no, we're just going to thrust that all onto you. We're going to move this over here, this over there, which these resources are already taxed anyway in terms of like the manpower, the things that they have to tackle and do. And you're just putting more on their plate. And you're saying this is all going to go well. It's actually going to be more streamlined, more fluent, more people are going to get help. When I think in contrary, it's going to be the fucking opposite. So yeah, and then states just get to do what they want with, once again, no fucking oversight, which I think is a fucking bad thing. I don't know, call me crazy. I know people are like, well, Isaiah, you always contradict yourself. I know. If you get a tomato, you're in Tomato Town, you can throw it at me too, man, and call me a fucking hypocrite. I remember I told that to somebody and they were like very stun-locked by that. And I'm like, this is as honest as I can be with you, dude. I'm a human being. I'm keeping it as 100 as I can. I don't know, man. Anyway, the president signed an executive order. The president signed an executive order earlier this year where he directed McMahon to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return authority over education to states and local communities. However, the department's official closure would require an act of Congress. McMahon has helmed efforts to reduce the size of staff and close 7 to 12 of its regional offices. There's more details, going throughout the article, but we'll cut it there. We're kind of cutting this in half so we can move on to the next thing. Like I said, I feel like I've made my 2 cents known, my stance on this shit. Obviously, boo, Lynn McMahon, like, fuck this shit. Also, I feel like I missed some Vince McMahon news. I think he settled some kind of thing, and I didn't get the details on that. It kind of fell through the cracks, so to speak. Maybe I might fish that story up and cover it in the future someday. I don't know. But fuck both of them though. There's 2 middle fingers for both of them motherfuckers. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. And fuck Trump, of course. From NBC News. Gilgo Beach serial killer sentenced to multiple life terms after victims' families blast him as demon, which is agreed. He's a demon with a fucking shitty haircut. The Manhattan architect who led a double life as the Gilgo Beach serial killer came face to face Wednesday with the families of his victims before he was sentenced to multiple life terms at an emotionally wrenching hearing. I believe he was sentenced to 3 life terms with no parole. One by one, relatives of the women Rex Heuermann admitted to strangling and dismembering, addressed the court and delivered searing victim impact statements. What you have done to our family is beyond what words can express, said Joanne Mack, the adopted mother of Valerie Mack, who disappeared in 2000. Some of the family members wept as they described their trauma and denounced the confessed killer. The 62-year-old kept his head down as the statements were read, even as some speakers demanded he look them in the eye. Now, we're not going to go through all of the text here, all the statements and witness, testimonials or whatever. Let's see here. More or less, I just wanted to kind of put a period on the sentence. The fact that he was going to be getting the 3 life terms. Let's see. I did want to read this part. In early April, Heuermann pleaded guilty to counts related to 7 murders and admitted that he intentionally caused the death of an 8th woman, Karen Vergata. However, as part of the plea deal, he was not charged with Vergata's murder. I wonder why that is. I wish I had a legal expert to kind of break that down for me, or I don't know, maybe I could get on True TV and find out. I don't fucking know. Anyway, like I said, I don't know why that part of the aspect of that was included when it's dude, you're facing multiple life sentences. You're not getting out of jail. So I don't know why that part matters for the legality sake. Why that was maybe something that was contested over, fought over, whatever. But that being said, you know, I'm glad this motherfucker is obviously, put in jail for life. You can put him under the fucking shit. And, once again, to speak to my hypocrisy, it's like, don't you say things about, the prison system and how it's so bad. Yeah, yeah, dude, it's fucked. It's nasty. And I obviously still want that system to be better. But that being said, when you got a motherfucker like this is beyond the pale shit. So yeah, put the motherfucker in jail, lock him up, forever, ever, man. Yeah, like I don't have any solution to that shit. Um, so yeah, we can go ahead and move along. Let's see here. We have one more story that I wanted to cover. It's another plane crash, man. I know I was saying the other day how, like, you shouldn't think about these things when they happen in clusters and go, man, this is really something crazy. What's going on? But it is like, damn, don't go, don't hit the skies tomorrow, twin. I don't know. No, obviously, shit's fine, but from the PJ to the motherfucking highway. Let's take our last break and we'll close it out. Oh, there was a cute moment in my break room today. I was on like my last break and the World Cup's playing in the break room, and a game is wrapping up, and I see this lady. I don't know who she is, but she has a jersey, matching the Democratic Republic of Congo, and as the final is declared, it was like a 1-1 draw. I forget who the other team was. Maybe Portugal. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong there. Sorry. She just starts cheering. She's so happy, and I'm like, that's a vibe. That's cool, man. Like that's what the shit's about. I was talking to another coworker too, just about it because they're into football and soccer, and they're pretty hyped for the World Cup, and they're hyped to talk about soccer with their friends and stuff like that, and so. Of course, I chime in with my bullshit that I don't know anything about. But it's not my first World Cup. You know what I mean? I've played the video game. I've kicked the ball around. And also, fun fact, I did play recreational soccer. And I was in a couple of leagues. Nothing competitive. Obviously, the recreational part. It was fun. It was cool. Oh my god, I used to have the worst problem of when I was a kid. I was a big kid. I've been a big kid all my life. I understood that you really can't use your hands. Okay, I get that. This is a foot game. But I really thought if I'm playing defense or whatever, I can use my body. Like so I used to like run over other kids, and they had to like stop me and say, "Hey, Isaiah, you can't do that. Just go for the ball. Just go for the ball, bud." And I got most improved. The McDonald's and the Caprisa hit different that day, okay? Shit, I'll give him something to flop about. Anyway, sorry. From CBS Austin, Capital Factory CEO Joshua Bear killed in plane crash near Laredo, Texas. Capital Factory co-founder and CEO Joshua Bear was killed Tuesday night when a small business jet crashed onto a highway near Laredo, Texas, according to the Austin-based startup Accelerator. The crash happened shortly before 10 p.m. on Loop 20 in Laredo after the aircraft reported mechanical problems while attempting to reach Laredo International Airport. Which, as of this time, as a recording, we don't know exactly what those mechanical issues were. 5 other people aboard the plane survived and were transported to the local hospital for treatment. None of the injuries were considered serious, which, I mean, that is a miracle in and of itself. Obviously, we know someone died, but wait, there is more. Authorities said the aircraft also struck a moving vehicle as it descended. One person in the car was hospitalized. So, once again, another person was also hurt, had to go to the hospital. But damn, could you imagine? I was thinking about this too. I live near a like a little airport, private airport runway, whatever the fuck. And so I'll hear a plane like, landing or whatever. And like, I feel like I'm not alone in this. This is the average person. When you hear a plane, you're prompted to want to look up, especially if it sounds low. And you think, oh man, it's kind of low. But then, like for me in my situation, I'm like, oh, it's obviously trying to land on a runway. But could you imagine? You're driving down the fucking street and you look in your rear view or you hear, excuse me, I'm sorry, louder than life. And shit's shaking or whatever, and the next thing you know, you're getting fucking clipped by the whole last fucking plane. Final Destination style. Donnie Darko mode. What the fuck? What the helly? Nah. I do not want to go out like that. So, once again, obviously condolences to the CEO. I think I at least wanted to kind of get to what he like did for a living. Let's see here. For more than 2 decades, Bear helped entrepreneurs launch and grow businesses across Texas. Under his leadership, Capital Factory became one of the state's most influential startup incubators and venture networks, connecting founders with investors, mentors, and corporate partners. I guess we can read this quote. Josh was a fearless leader, a brilliant partner, and dear friend to so many of us. Capital Factory President Brian Chambers said in a statement, while we are devastated by his unimaginable loss, Josh built an incredibly resilient organization and a deeply capable team. Capital Factory remains fully operational, and we are completely committed to continuing our mission of backing unstoppable founders. We will not stop. We will not quit. Like, all right, okay. But yeah, for real. Condolences to his family and all that shit. I think for me, as I'm closing this out, I kind of like whenever I talk about any of like the police stuff or any of the military stuff or any of these fucking things, when we get to the individuals, I am often trying to, remind myself not to be callous, to like remember that these are people, and like, yes, this motherfucker's making more money to just like, oh, start a new business, play fantasy manager. But, he was a whole ass person with a whole ass life and all that shit. And whatever the fuck he was doing kind of doesn't fucking matter. I don't know. But, that is what it is. That all that kind of shit, the systematic shit, I know that's for another fucking episode. I can just kind of say, RIP, and we can keep it moving, right? So, and is that something I'm working on? Maybe so. Time will tell. But yeah, that's it. That's the episode. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com. So Isaiah's News. It's Isaiah News. I was thinking about saying some stupid shit, and I just said some stupid shit. Become a newsie today, though. If you think it's worth it, or you just like the cut of my jib, toss some money my way, please. Thank you. Become a newsie, though. It's a roll call thing to get access to some old ass episodes that either I didn't feel were good for the main, I was too shy to post on the main, it was a personal thing, or I got too personal talking about whatever. Like, it was, a few of those are in there. I have these like note ruminations that I have not updated. So there's that. You get to see some old, little text scribbles that I've had for myself. I don't know. It's a thing. But become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcast. Leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is caring. 5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Sure. Why not? That'd be pretty cool if you did that. But if you don't, that's okay. I just appreciate getting the opportunity to yap about my life, my opinion on some fucking news and what's going on, the happenings. So, did you know that Jelly Roll and Bunny XO divorced? Shit, you got that for the bonus. I just threw that at you just for free at the end. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.